All right. Hello. Good morning, second grade, and welcome back to another week of learning. I am here to read your story to you this week. So last week we read Introducing Asia, and we got to learn a little bit more about Asia. It was really cool. And this week we're going to learn. We're going to read Introducing Africa. So we're going to learn a little bit more about. Good job, you guessed it, Africa. So remember, we're going to use our text features to determine what our story is trying to teach us. So we're going to go over some text features real quick. Remember, we have a title page that tells us what the title is and usually the author, which it does not show us an author on this book. We have a table of contents, and that's going to tell us all of our headings and what page to find them on. Remember, our headings are kind of like hints as to what is going to be that, or what that page is going to be about, right? So animals, I can go ahead and think, well, when we get to the animal section, I bet you we're going to learn about the animals found in Africa, right? So the words that are in bold like this right here, this bold, they're called keywords, and they help us better understand what we are reading. And we can find out what they mean by looking in the glossary. And our glossary is just our little, kind of like our little mini dictionary that tells us the definition of the keywords. Okay? And remember, we have photographs, and then we have text box, which have words inside of a box, right? And so those can also act as captions and tell us what's going on in a photo, okay? So I think those are all of our text features that are in our, this story. So we're gonna go ahead and start reading. So remember, I'll stop you for different days, okay? So Monday's reading is gonna start right now. Go ahead and move myself down here. There we go. About Africa. Africa is one of the world's 7 continents. A continent is a huge area of land. Africa is the second largest continent. Half of Africa is north of the equator, and half is south of the equator. Okay, so we know our heading is about Africa, so it's kind of just telling us some facts about Africa. Continent, we learned that word last week. Remember, there are 7 continents in the world. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So Africa is one of those continents, and it's the second largest one. What was the first largest? Asia, right? We learned that last week. And it says half of Africa is north of the equator and half is south of the equator. Well, the equator is this line right here, this blue line. So half of Africa is above the equator and half of it is below. Okay, let's keep reading. Africa is almost surrounded by water. To the west is the Atlantic Ocean. To the east is the Indian Ocean. The Mediterranean Sea is to the north. The huge island of Madagascar is also part of Africa. So this right here, this is the island of Madagascar. All right, Africa fact file. Area is about 11,724,000 square miles. Population is more than 1 billion. Number of countries, 56. Highest mountain, Kilimanjaro, at 19,341 feet. The longest river is the Nile at 4,132 miles. Okay, let's keep reading. You might have heard, famous places. You might have heard of some of the famous places in Africa. Some of these places are ancient. The pyramids are in Egypt near the city of Cairo. Ancient Egyptians built them about 4,500 years ago. So here's our photograph, right? And it's showing us a pyramid, and I'm not sure what this is. But if we read our caption, it'll tell us. This photograph shows the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid. So this is the Great Pyramid, which means this must be the Sphinx, right? All right. The Victoria Falls are on the Zambezi River between the countries of Zambia and Zimbabwe. They are 5,604 feet wide and 324 feet high. Wow, look how pretty that waterfall is. The local name of the Victoria Falls is Mosiah Tuna, which means smoke that thunders. Ooh. Smoke that thunders. I bet you they're talking about the mist that comes off of the water. So if it's Monday, I want you guys to stop reading here, okay? So this is all you're supposed to read for Monday. All right, if you are still reading, that means it's Tuesday, so I'm going to keep reading to you guys. Geography. In the north and south of Africa are vast deserts. Do you guys remember what vast means? It means very long, right? Oh, there's a spider, sorry. It means very big, right? Vast, wide. So, in the north and south of Africa are vast deserts with huge sand dunes. The Sahara Desert covers almost all of North Africa. The Nabi Desert and the Kalahari Desert are in the south. The Sahara Desert are the largest hot desert in the world. Wow, so it's the biggest desert. And you can see that this map down here is showing us the different deserts. So right here is the Sahara. Look how big it is. And then down here are the other small deserts, so they're not as big. There are vast grassy plains in Africa called grasslands. Along the equator, there are rainforests. Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya are the two highest mountains in Africa. They are in East Africa. That elephant, and that's a mountain right there. It says Kilimanjaro is a volcano, but it doesn't erupt anymore. Well, we read about a volcano. Do you guys remember in the Magic Treehouse series, Jack and Annie, they went and they saw Mount Vesuvius, remember? So it used to be a volcano, but it doesn't erupt anymore. All right, let's keep reading. The Nile is the longest river in the world. It starts in the middle of Africa and flows all the way down to the Mediterranean Sea. The other great rivers in Africa are the Congo, the Niger, and the Zambezi. The Nile River flows through the desert in Egypt. Wow, so I bet you that water was really helpful in the desert, right? All right, let's keep reading. Lake Victoria is the largest lake in Africa. It's also the second largest lake in the world. It measures 209 meters from north to south and 149 miles from west to east. More than 200 different types of fish live in the lake. It's almost the size of an ocean. These fishermen are preparing their boats on the shore of Lake Victoria. All right, so if it's Tuesday, I want you guys to go ahead and stop there. All right, if it's Wednesday, this is where Wednesday's reading starts. Weather. In much of Africa, the weather is warm or hot most of the time. Along the equator, the weather is tropical. It is hot and wet all year round. It rains almost every day in the rainforest. Oops, look at this mist, it looks like. Trees and other plants grow well in the warm, wet, tropical weather. Yeah, it looks very green. It looks like everything's growing well. In the grassland, there's a dry season when it never rains, and a rainy season when it rains almost every day. In the deserts, it is dry year-round. It is hot in the daytime, but cold at night. So many people don't know that in the desert, because it's so hot at night, when the sun goes away, the sand actually gets cool, and so it becomes very cold at night. It looks like a lot of rain. I bet you that's in rainy season, right? All right, let's keep reading. Animals. An amazing variety of animals live in Africa. Elephants, giraffes, rhinoceroses, and lions live in the grassland. There's also big herds of zebras, wildebeest, and antelopes. Gorillas live in the rainforest. Wow, look at that. Herds of wildebeest and elephants live on the African plain. So these are the elephants, and these are the wildebeest. Madagascar is the large island on the east coast of Africa. Most of the animals that live there don't live anywhere else on Earth. The most famous are the lemurs. These ring-tailed lemurs live in a nature reserve in Madagascar. There they are. So a lot of you guys know what lemurs look like because of the movie Madagascar, right? They're the little monkeys that sing, "I like to move it, move it." All right, if it's Wednesday, go ahead and stop there. So if it's Friday, we are going to keep reading. Or sorry, Thursday. If it's Thursday, this is where Thursday's reading starts. So sorry. All right, plants. Many unusual plants grow in Africa. Plants grow very well in the wet, warm rainforest. There are huge trees such as mahogany trees and ebony trees. There are also amazing plants such as orchids and African violets. These beautiful orchids are growing in the rainforest in Madagascar. Look how pretty those flowers are. Baobab trees with thick trunks and thorny acacia trees stand in the grasslands. Palm trees grow at oases in the desert. Papyrus grows along the banks of the Nile River. The ancient Egyptians used papyrus to write on like paper. Palm trees grow in the desert where water comes up from the underground. Look, we have palm trees in Florida. Pretty cool. People. There are hundreds of different groups of people living in different parts of Africa. Big groups, including Arabs and Berbers in North Africa. Some small groups of people, such as the Mitui, live in the rainforest. Mitui pygmies live in the Democratic Republic of Congo. They hunt animals and gather plants. More than 1,500 different languages are spoken in Africa. People have spoken these African languages for thousands of years. In many African countries, people also speak English, Portuguese, French, or Arabic. Many different languages are spoken in Morocco, including Arabic, Berber, and French. Okay, and you can see, so Morocco is kind of a village, so you can see their clothing and how it's different than the people that live in the Congo, in the rainforest, right? All right, let's keep reading. All right, African culture. Many African people still do their traditional dances on special occasions. They dress in traditional costumes and some wear body paint. Maasai men in East Africa perform a special jumping dance. These Chuka people from Kenya play traditional music on drums. So they're playing their traditional music. Soccer is the most popular sport in Africa. Every 2 years, the national soccer teams of African countries play in the African Cup of Nations. Cricket is played in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Kenya. Most towns and villages in Africa have a dirt soccer field. Look at that, they're playing soccer. How fun. All right, this is where Thursday's reading stops. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and keep reading. Friday, this is Friday. So if it's Friday, this is where your reading starts. Countries. There are 56 countries in Africa. Algeria in North Africa is the largest. The Seychelles in the Indian Ocean is the smallest. It's made up of many islands. So you can see right here, you see how tiny that is? So this map shows the countries of Africa. So that's the largest, Algeria. And then the smallest is down here, right? All right, very cool. Countries from Europe once ruled most of Africa. That's why people in African countries speak English or French. A new African country was made in 2011 when the South Sudan split away from the rest of Sudan. Okay, so right here you can see this. Sudan used to be one huge country right here on the map, and then South Sudan decided to split away. So now they're two different countries. Okay, keep reading. Cities and countryside. 4 in every 10 Africans live in a city. Cairo, the capital of Egypt, is the African city with the greatest number of people. 11 million people live there. Many people live in slums without electricity or running water. This is the view over the rooftops of Cairo, the capital of Egypt. So wow, look at that. Look at the roof. It would look a little bit different. The buildings do, right? If you were looking at New York City, right? We don't have kind of the rounded architecture, which is the shape of the buildings in America really that much. So you can see there's different architecture. All right, in the countryside, people live in small villages. Many make it a living from farming or by looking after herds of animals. Some also find food by hunting animals and gathering plants. In many African villages, people get water from their village well. There it is. All right. Natural resources and products. Africa has many natural resources. Oil is found under the ground in North Africa and West Africa. Nigeria produces the most oil of any country in Africa. Diamonds and gold are mined from the ground in South Africa. Wow, look at that. These are oil wells on the bank of the Niger River in Nigeria. Farmers grow crops for themselves to sell at the market or to sell to other countries. Bananas, yams, coffee, tea, and peanuts are the popular crops to grow. Most of the world's cocoa beans come from West Africa. They are turned into chocolate. A farmer in the Ivory Coast cuts down pods full of cocoa beans. Look at that. And that is the rest of our story for today, or for this week, okay? So remember, you can always go back and listen to the section that you need, okay, for that day to be able to answer your questions. And we're really focusing, okay, on the photograph and what the captions are teaching us, right? So if I look at this photograph without looking at this caption, I wouldn't really understand what this is. I said, wow, look at that. It looks like it's on fire. But if I read the caption, I know these are the oil wells on the bank of the Niger River in Nigeria, right? So I wouldn't have known that if I didn't read the caption. So we're really focused on what our caption's teaching us and our photograph. All right. All right. I hope everyone has a great week. And as always, if you have any questions, let me know. Bye.